She died at the age of 13 as a result of repeated sexual abuse that left her body broken and her dreams shattered. Her name was Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbonge, and her story is one that Nigeria cannot afford to forget. Ochanya was born on March 10, 2005, in the rural community of Ojinomejo in Benue State, Nigeria. She was the youngest of 11 children born to Rose Abba and Michael Ogbonge. Like many parents in rural Nigeria, Rose and Michael faced a painful reality. The only government school in their community had shut down, and they lived in an area where about 32% of residents were classified as monetarily poor, but Ochanya's parents had dreams for their daughter. They wanted her to have the education they never had, to break free from the cycle of poverty that gripped their community. They wanted her to be among the fortunate ones, not part of the estimated 260,000 children who were out of school in Benue State. So at just 5 years old, Ochanya was sent to live with her aunt, Felicia Ogbuja, and her husband, Andrew Ogbuja, a lecturer at Benue State Polytechnic in Ogbokolo. The Ogbujas had 5 children of their own, and they lived in a more developed area where Ochanya could attend school. It seemed like the perfect opportunity for a little girl with big dreams. Ochanya would later enroll at the Federal Government Girls' College in Boko, Benue State. She was a promising student, bright and hopeful, with dreams of becoming a medical doctor one day. But the home that was supposed to be her sanctuary, the family that was supposed to protect her, would become the source of unimaginable horror. The abuse began when Ochanya was just 8 years old. 8 years old. An age when children should be worried about homework and playtime, when they should be learning to trust the world around them. Instead, Ochanya was being violated by Victor Ogbuja, the eldest of the Ogbuja children, and her own cousin. In a video recorded shortly before her death, Ochanya herself would tell the story in her own words. She said, "When I was 8 years old, the son started sleeping with me, and when his sister caught him, she reported him to their father, and the father scolded him. From there, the father also started sleeping with me." Yes, you heard that correctly. When Winifred Ogbuja, Victor's own sister and Ochanya's cousin, caught her brother assaulting the young girl, she did what she thought was right. She reported him to their parents. Andrew Ogbuja, the father, joined in scolding his son. They prayed together. And then, according to Ochanya's testimony, Andrew himself began to sexually assault her. The abuse continued for 5 years. 5 years of violation, of pain, of a childhood stolen. Neither Andrew nor his wife Felicia informed Ochanya's parents about what was happening in their home. The little girl was trapped, suffering in silence while the adults who should have protected her looked away. In 2012, when Ochanya was just 7 years old, her body began to show the devastating effects of the prolonged abuse. She fell ill and was taken to St. Mary Hospital in Okpoga, where she spent 6 days receiving medical attention. She recovered temporarily, but it was only the beginning of years of medical complications. Ochanya's mother, Rose, would later recount that her daughter was constantly in and out of hospitals for over 5 years. The absence of a hospital in Ojinomejo made access to healthcare even more difficult. Ochanya began experiencing urinary incontinence, a condition that made her unable to control her urine. It became so severe that she had to wear diapers continuously, sometimes for as long as 4 months at a time, but the worst was still to come. Ochanya developed vesicovaginal fistula, known as VVF, a horrific medical condition where an abnormal opening forms between the bladder and the vagina, causing constant leakage of urine. While VVF is most commonly caused by complications during childbirth or surgical procedures, in Ochanya's case, it was caused by years of brutal sexual trauma. The condition is physically devastating, but for a 13-year-old girl, it was also emotionally and psychologically crushing. Imagine being unable to control your own body, having to wear diapers to school, living with constant pain and leakage. Ochanya's body was desperately trying to tell a story that her voice was not yet ready to speak. When Ochanya was taken to the restorer of Path Care Foundation in Otokpo, Benue State, the owner of the health foundation, Enua Margaret, began investigating the cause of her condition. The medical examination revealed the terrible truth. Ochanya's VVF was the result of repeated sexual abuse through both her anus and vagina. Ochanya's condition had deteriorated so severely that she was sent home from Federal Government Girls College Goko after multiple visits to the school sickbay. Her parents received yet another call about their daughter's health, but this time, it was different. Ochanya was dying, and she knew it. Ochanya finally found the courage to tell her parents what had been happening to her. When her father, Michael Ogbonje, a retired military personnel, confronted Andrew Ogbuja with the accusations, Andrew initially denied everything and offered to swear an oath to prove his innocence. However, he threw his own son under the bus, admitting that Victor had been caught sleeping with Ochanya but claiming he had simply scolded the boy and asked them to pray about it. Days later, Andrew Ogbuja, accompanied by some elders, showed up at Ochanya's family house seeking forgiveness. But Ochanya's parents refused his plea. They wanted justice, not apologies. They wanted legal prosecution. Ochanya was transferred to the Federal Medical Center in Makurdi, where doctors continued to treat her rapidly failing condition. But by this time, her 13-year-old body had endured too much. In her final days, Ochanya could neither walk, speak, nor eat. She spent her last moments wearing diapers, unable to control her urine and feces, a physical manifestation of the years of abuse she had suffered. Before she died, Ochanya was interviewed. Yes, this dying 13-year-old child was put in front of cameras and microphones. Instead of being given privacy, trauma care, and rehabilitation, her pain was packaged for public consumption. In that video, barely able to speak, she told her story. She named her abusers, Victor and Andrew Ogbuja. She said she wanted her health back. She wanted justice. On October 17, 2018, Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbonje took her last breath. She died at the age of 13, her dreams of becoming a doctor forever unfulfilled, her childhood stolen, her body broken by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Ochanya's death sparked national and international outrage. The hashtag Justice for Ochanya trended across social media platforms. Civil society groups, child rights activists, and gender rights organizations led protests and demanded accountability. Nigeria, a country where an estimated 1.4 million people experience sexual offenses in just 1 year, was finally paying attention to one victim's story. Andrew Ogbuja was arrested by police in 2018 and charged with 4 counts including rape and culpable homicide. Victor Ogbuja, the other accused perpetrator, was declared wanted but has never been found. He vanished and remains at large to this day. 7 years later, the legal proceedings that followed were nothing short of a travesty of justice. On April 22, 2022, the Benue State High Court in Makurdi acquitted Andrew Ogbuja of raping and causing the death of Ochanya. Let that sink in. Despite medical evidence, despite Ochanya's own video testimony recorded before her death, despite the autopsy reports, Andrew Ogbuja walked free. The judge, Justice Augustine Itianayemen, cited inconsistencies in the 2 autopsy reports submitted as evidence. One report from the Federal Medical Center in Makurdi stated that Ochanya died of natural causes, while another from the Nigerian Police Forensic Laboratory in Lagos linked her death to complications from sexual abuse. The judge chose to focus on these inconsistencies rather than the overwhelming evidence of abuse. In perhaps the most shocking statement, Justice Itianayemen said, "It is regrettable that the deceased could not tell her story before she died." This was said despite the existence of video evidence of Ochanya herself narrating her ordeal, describing in her own words how Victor began abusing her at age 8, how his father Andrew joined in after Victor was caught, and how she told her mother about it. On the same day, in a separate case at the Federal High Court in Makurdi, Ochanya's aunt, Felicia Ogbuja, was convicted for negligence and failing in her duty to protect the child. She was sentenced to just 5 months in prison. 5 months for a child's life. 5 months for years of turning a blind eye while her husband and son violated a little girl in her care. The Court of Appeal later upheld this conviction. So let's review the outcomes. The man accused of raping a child to death was acquitted. His son, also accused of the same crimes, has never been arrested and remains free. And the woman who was convicted of negligence for allowing the abuse to happen received a 5-month sentence. This is what justice looked like for Ochanya Ogbonje. Ochanya's case is not an isolated incident. It is a mirror reflecting Nigeria's broader crisis of sexual violence against children and the systematic failures in addressing it. According to UNICEF, 1 in every 4 girls in Nigeria experiences sexual violence before the age of 18. That statistic is not just a number, it is a national indictment. It means that in a family of 10 girls, at least 2 will be sexually violated before they become adults. The failures in Ochanya's case are numerous and devastating. First, there was the family betrayal. The people who were supposed to be her sanctuary became her tormentors. Second, there was community failure. For 5 years, no one noticed or acted on the signs of a child being abused. Third, there was medical system failure. Despite numerous hospital visits, no healthcare provider reported suspected child abuse. Fourth, there was educational system failure. When Ochanya was constantly going to the sick bay at school, why did no one investigate further? And finally, there was the catastrophic failure of the justice system. A system that looked at a 13-year-old girl's broken body, at her video testimony, at medical evidence of sexual trauma, and decided there wasn't enough proof. A system that allowed one perpetrator to walk free and another to remain at large. In many Nigerian communities, abuse is cloaked in euphemism. It's called the discipline, correction, or the family matter. Victims are told not to speak. Perpetrators are shielded by status, wealth, or kinship. Families often push for out-of-court settlements or, horrifyingly, marriage to the perpetrator. The shame is placed on the victim and her family rather than on the abuser. The failure to respond to cases like Ochanya's is not just a legal or institutional deficit, it is a moral and societal crisis. When survivors see perpetrators walk free, the system sends a clear message: girls and women are unprotected, their pain dismissed. As perpetrators witness this impunity, they grow bolder instead of cautious. And when communities watch injustice unfold, trust in the system erodes, and reporting declines. 7 years after Ochanya's death, Nigerians have not forgotten her. In October 2025, as the 7th anniversary of her death approached, social media platforms exploded with renewed outrage. Prominent personalities shared her story. The hashtag Justice for Ochanya trended once again on X, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. A new change.org petition titled Justice for Ochanya began gaining traction, calling for authorities to arrest Victor Ogbuja and reopen the case against Andrew Ogbuja. The petition demands a retrial, arguing that the acquittal was based on legal technicalities rather than the substance of the evidence. Child rights activists, led by figures like Betty Abba, have repeatedly condemned the failure of authorities to track down Victor Ogbuja. They have called on the Benue State Government, the Nigeria Police Force, the Federal Ministry of Justice, and the Ministry of Women Affairs to take action. The message is clear: justice delayed is justice denied, and Ochanya's death must not be in vain. The renewed activism has also brought attention to other members of the Ogbuja family, particularly Winifred Ogbuja, Andrew's daughter, who initially reported her brother's abuse but has remained silent about her father's role. Social media users directed intense scrutiny toward her, leading her to deactivate her accounts. While some argue that she was also a victim of the family's dysfunction, others contend that silence in the face of such evil is complicity. Ochanya's story demands more than outrage. It demands action. It demands systemic change. Here's what needs to happen. First, there must be justice. Victor Ogbuja must be found and prosecuted. The case against Andrew Ogbuja must be reopened with fresh eyes and a commitment to truth rather than legal technicalities. This is not just about one family, it's about sending a message that sexual violence against children will not be tolerated. Second, there must be legal reform. Nigeria's laws against sexual violence must be strengthened and, more importantly, enforced. Conviction rates for sexual offenses remain dismally low. The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act exists, but its implementation is inconsistent across states. Every state must adopt and enforce comprehensive laws protecting children from sexual abuse. Third, there must be education and awareness. Communities must be educated about recognizing signs of child abuse and the importance of reporting it. Medical professionals must be trained to identify and report suspected cases. Teachers and school officials must be equipped to notice and act on red flags. Fourth, there must be better protection systems. Child protection services must be strengthened and adequately funded. Reporting mechanisms must be accessible and safe. Victims must have access to trauma-informed care, medical treatment, and legal support. Fifth, there must be cultural change. Nigeria must confront its culture of silence around sexual abuse. The shame must be placed where it belongs, on the perpetrators, not the victims. Families must stop prioritizing donor over children's safety. Communities must stop protecting powerful men at the expense of vulnerable children. And finally, there must be support for survivors. Organizations working to repair VVF must receive funding and support. Survivors of sexual abuse must have access to comprehensive medical care, mental health services, and social support. We must create a society where survivors are believed, supported, and empowered to heal. Ochanya's story is not just about one girl. It is about a society that has normalized silence, protected predators, and abandoned its children. It is about a justice system that values technicalities over truth, that gives more weight to the rights of the accused than to the suffering of the victim. Every time we share Ochanya's story, we are reminded of the thousands of other Ochanyas out there. The girls who are being abused right now, in homes that should be safe, by people who should be protectors. The girls who are suffering in silence because they've learned that speaking up might not make a difference. The girls who are developing medical complications but have no access to care. The girls whose stories will never be told because they won't survive to tell them. Ochanya wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to heal people. Instead, she became a symbol of everything that is broken in Nigeria's response to child sexual abuse. Her death should have been a turning point. Instead, it became another chapter in Nigeria's long history of systemic failure, but it's not too late. Her story still burns. Her name still echoes. And her fight is still ours to carry. Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbonje was born on March 10, 2005. She died on October 17, 2018, at just 13 years old. Between those dates, she experienced unimaginable suffering, betrayal by those who should have loved her, and a justice system that ultimately failed her. But Ochanya's legacy is not just her suffering. It is also the movement she inspired. It is the thousands of Nigerians who refuse to let her story be forgotten. It is the activists fighting for better laws and stronger protections. It is every person who sees her story and decides that enough is enough. 7 years later, the call remains the same: justice for Ochanya. Justice for every child who has been violated and abandoned by the systems meant to protect them. Justice for every survivor still waiting for their day in court. Justice for every family still seeking answers. Victor Ogbuja must be found and prosecuted. The case against Andrew Ogbuja must be revisited. And Nigeria must finally confront its failures in protecting its children. Ochanya wanted her health back. She wanted justice. We couldn't give her the first, but we can still fight for the second. And in fighting for her, we fight for all the children who deserve to grow up safe, protected, and free from violence. This is not just Ochanya's story. This is Nigeria's story. And it is a story that cannot end until justice is done. Rest in peace, Ochanya Elizabeth Ogbonje. Your life mattered. Your voice mattered. And your fight for justice continues through all of us who refuse to forget you. Justice for Ochanya.